I'm joining from the Mental Health Coalition today. Really excited to see you all here. This is for our one-to-one series. And my name is Dr. Naomi Torres-Mackie. I'll be joined by two phenomenal humans in a couple of minutes. But just to let you all know who I am, so I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm based out of Brooklyn, New York, and I'm also the head of research at the Mental Health Coalition. So we are going live today for our one-to-one series because everyone needs to talk to someone. So, as I said, I'm really excited to be going live to talk about mental health with no other but Calum Scott and Madam Gandhi.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being part of this discussion this afternoon. We're happy to have you.
Very happy to have you. And I want to make sure to introduce our two lovely guests here. So we have Calum Scott, who is a multi-platinum selling Brit Award nominated singer and songwriter, who is an LGBTQ plus equality activist and outspoken mental health advocate. And then we also have Madam Gandhi, who is an artist and activist whose mission is to celebrate gender liberation and also very passionate about mental health. So we're very pleased to have you here. I'll let you two take it away from here, and I'll be watching.
Thank you.
Oh, here we are, Karen. Here we are.
It's such a pleasure that we're having this conversation. Calum, I had the joy of seeing you perform during Grammy kind of time a few years ago, and was just blown away by your work and your sincerity. I think, this time of social media has allowed us to create a lot of depth in our artistry, where there's a 360 picture of what artists are actually going through and thinking, and there's a person behind the actual work. And you really model that authenticity. So it's great that we're having this very vulnerable conversation today. When you invited me to be part of this discussion on mental health, I leaped at the opportunity, and thank you all for coming here today, because everything looks cool and glamorous, and it's cool to get fucked up and party and all these kinds of things. But the more I dig deep and the more I prioritize the sustainability of my career, the more I've realized that a lot of those choices, whether it's drinking or alcohol or kind of the drug abuse that we see in the music industry, it only holds us back, and it's only a band-aid solution for whatever it is that we're going through underneath it all. So I'd love to kind of maybe start off the conversation with what are some challenges that you've personally overcome in your own mental health, and then I can go ahead and answer the same question.
Well, I mean, I just want to echo what you just said there, Kieran. I think, I'm super grateful that you guys have joined us. I've already seen so many amazing comments. It means a lot to all of us. When the Mental Health Coalition had got in touch and said that they're doing this one-to-one series and would I love to be involved, of course my answer was yes. The first person that came to my mind was you, Kieran, just because of how eloquently you speak about mental health, and I've watched, especially during the pandemic as well, because I don't think I've known you much earlier than the pandemic. I think we was at the Grammy Museum, and then the pandemic sort of hit. And so I've not known you long, but in the time that I have known you, you speak so eloquently about these things where I go away and I'm like, she's so right. And then I'll push people to your channel, and like everybody who I speak to who knows you and knows your work and know what you do and how eloquently you speak is just blown away. So I mean, I couldn't be a bigger fan, really. But for sure, I mean, mental health has always been, my dealing with my mental health has always been a bit of an issue for me. Prior to being in the music industry, my struggle with my sexuality and, coming to terms with that took a long, long time. And I've had, amazing moments with that. I've also had very low moments with that. And I think going through my, that coming out experience, suppressing my sexuality for such a long time, I came through other challenges. And I feel like it's one of those things where if you push a problem down, it's going to pop up somewhere else in a different form,
Yes.
So I'm a big advocate of speaking about things, talking, even a conversation can help. And especially with the music industry, you touched on it there about, the highs and lows of the music industry and how the people view that. And I've had, issues with that. For those who don't know me, I was on a TV show in the UK on Britain's Got Talent in 2015. I had an amazing audition moment that just seems to have gone viral, and then from there released a single, got signed. It all happened very, very quickly. And for me, something that I struggled with is that I wasn't, I feel like I wasn't born a front man, and so for having that overnight success, you're having to deal with all of the stresses of, being in the public eye, being in this industry very, very quickly. And that was very, very hard for me to adapt. So I've had a lot of challenges. What I will say is that for me, the way I've overcome that has been through having a counselor or a therapist, somebody to speak to about my issues and my problems, having that those friends and family around me that I can really trust and really go to with my problems. And music for me has been a godsend. It's just been an absolute savior for me, because music has enabled me to talk about things that I never thought I would discuss with people outside of my friendship zone, let alone the world that was at my doorstep at the time. I don't know if that's the same with you, Kieran.
So much of what you're saying is really resonating, and I know our audience is really resonating with you too, because all humans want is to allow for the fullest expression of our own truth. Who are we? Are we seen? Are we loved for being our real self? And when we feel we have to conform or perform something else that's not authentic, it's not only exhausting, but it's not sustainable. And it creates enormous amounts of anxiety. When we feel safe, mentally and psychologically safe, to be the fullest expression of our humanity, we feel good, we feel love, we feel happiness, we feel joy, we feel like the cup is overflowing, we have something else to give. And in my own journey, feeling and tasting some of those moments only makes you want to have more of those moments, because you're like, oh, that's the truth. The truth is that each of us need to be able to do our work and express ourselves fully. And so I have to optimize to allow myself to be the best version of myself. And that's where I think mental health comes into play. I find myself being my lower vibrational self with my bad habits and, moodiness and things like that, when I'm not giving myself the good things that I need to be my best self. And recently, those things have been surrounding myself, just like you said, with those who really make me feel seen, who really actively want to show that they understand me and love me, and taking distance from those folks who don't give me that space. And we have to model the behavior that we expect, so those of you who are watching, we have to model the behavior that we're expecting. We have to be compassionate. We have to make others feel seen and understood. We have to give other people the space to express themselves if we hope to be, given that same. The second thing is, what are we eating? What are we putting in our body? Are we aware of where our food comes from? Are we eating vegetables and fruits and real things from the earth, balanced with whatever our larger meals are? The third thing, substances, so much substances in the music industry, drinking, smoking, the list goes on and on. They disconnect. They are disconnecting substances. They don't connect. We always think, oh, I'm going to go out and be with my friends and drink, and that's going to bring us closer. Or I really want to hook up with this person. Maybe if I drink, I'll feel closer to them. I'll be my more real self because I'll be looser. Those substances in my journey and in my experience, they disconnect me farther from myself. They don't allow for a genuine connection. And the work that I've been doing is, whoever I surround myself with, I want to come as my true self. I don't want someone to love me because I'm a different, disconnected self. I want to show up authentically. And with the substances as well, on that third point, I have found that when I feel pain, when I feel anxiety, when I feel sorrowful, when I feel lack of self-love, these are the times that I'm reaching for a smoke, for a drink, for something else. But the real bravery is in saying, okay, what is that pain? Why do I feel that pain? Where did it come from? Who made me feel this way? And digging deeper, asking questions, maybe working with a therapist, or maybe just sitting with the self, going for a hike, for a walk, crying privately, crying loudly, releasing it. So I'll take a pause there, but these are some of the ways that I've really prioritized my own mental health.
And I totally hear you there. I mean, I think that there's so much that contributes to mental health, and you listed everything of what I was going to say as well. I'm a big advocate of fitness. I love working out. I love running. I love hiking. And I think that always helps me with my own mental health. It clears my head. It gets the blood rushing through my body. It makes me feel alive. And I'm with you. I mean, if you want to go out for a drink with your friends, then feel free. If you want to have a meal that's, maybe a little bit greasy, maybe a takeaway, whatever, fast food, then that's fine. I suppose I always try and think of things in moderation. I think everything should be done in moderation. But I do agree with you. I think the times that I've questioned myself most or been anxious the most is when you look for those quick fixes that you think are just going to help. You want a drink on a night, or you want to have a cigarette, or you go out because you think that hooking up with somebody will make you feel better, or whatever it is. I think those are vices, and those are things that you think will make you feel better, and maybe it does in the short term. But our life is the longest thing we'll have, and I feel like we're all on a path to discover what makes us happy, what makes us feel content, and that will be different for different people. There'll be, there's a couple of hundred people on here that will all have different experiences and different ways of coping. I suppose the best thing that we can do is be here and to raise awareness and to show that there are different ways. Because I don't know about you, Kieran, but I've found that some of my fans will come to me and be like, oh, well, fitness doesn't really work for me and I still feel down. What would you suggest I do? And I get comments like that all the time, where because I work out and because I like to stay fit, and that's the way that I cope with it, and writing music. For somebody who doesn't do those things, it can look like, oh, well, I'm a fan of Calum, and Calum's saying that fitness and, things work for him, but it doesn't work for me. I think that in itself can be a problem, because you don't want to say this is the fix, this is what's going to work. So I think it's really important, Dr. Naomi, with you, Kieran, to have a big conversation about, what does help. And, I think, from the title of what we've put on our Instagram or Facebook, it's talking about how, for me and you, Kieran, specifically, how music helps. And that's something that I've had the honor of having messages from people all across the world that have said, your music's helped me. Listening to your music has soothed me. That kind of stuff is
huge,
priceless. I mean, I feel so honored when people say that to me, and I guarantee you've had the same things, right, Kieran?
I'm just listening to you and I'm receiving it, and I'm seeing it resonate so much with folks. I think, with music being healing for others, what I want everyone who's watching this call is to remember that when we heal ourselves, we're healing others. When we prioritize bravery in our own life, we're healing others. In your coming out journey, which was challenging and difficult, you're healing others because you're going through something tough, and now you have something real and vulnerable to offer, and it comes out in the music, not even in so many literal words. It's the emotion, it's the feeling, it's the sincerity. Sure. And so, for those of you who are watching who might be going through a tough time, the best thing you can do is realize that in you overcoming what it is that you're going through, you're showing up for so many people, not just yourself. You're now a wiser parent, you're a wiser aunt, you're a wiser friend, you're a wiser lover. Your heart is full because you went through something and healed from it. And that has been a huge source of motivation for me. You're absolutely right that we can suggest things that have been effective for us. For me, it's been being more aware of my food, reducing any kind of use of substance, being able to create more music and self-expression, fitness, yoga, meditation. These are wonderful tools that have worked for me. Good sleep, the most underestimated one.
Yes.
Good sleep.
Yes. I love sleeping.
Yes, good sleep is a huge one. And I know, Dr. Naomi, we can kick it to you for some more resources. And thank you, Dana, for the shout out. I appreciate all of y'all chiming in this conversation. But I think the journey has to come from this desire of self-love and almost like being our own parent. Sometimes I talk to myself and I'm like, okay, I see you're a little moody today. What is it? What is it? Why did you talk to that person that way? What are you feeling? And being gentle with myself. Then I don't judge it, instead of saying you're such a failure, you're so rude, you're so this, then it makes it worse. We have to be so loving with ourselves, like a small child. Okay, what is it that you're needing? Why are you being like this? And then we take responsibility for our own actions and can give ourselves what we need.
Sure. I mean, I would love to know what you think, Dr. Naomi, of everything we've said, because, it's so important that we have this conversation. I mean, specifically, during the pandemic, everybody's mental health has been tested. Everybody is being put in positions where they can't see their loved ones, where they can't go out, they can't socialize, and that has pushed a lot of people to, drinking, to smoking, to eating bad food and cabbaging out on the sofa watching TV. And I think, that's nobody's fault. Those are things that you kind of fall into as a comfort blanket, I suppose. But like I said, it is a short-term thing. And everything that you mentioned there, Kieran, about, eating well and meditation and yoga and stuff like that, it takes a lot of motivation to do those things, because in my experience, it's always easier to fall on the floor and never get up. Because it's harder to pull yourself up and take another punch, right?
Yes.
And I think, I'd love to know what you think, Dr. Naomi, of everything we've said, because, they're the Mental Health Coalition. I love talking about mental health, but you guys, it's your bread and butter. So it'd be cool to know what you think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, first of all, I mean, I have to give you both so much credit, because everything that you said, I feel like it's so true and so genuine and so lovely to see both of you speaking from your own lived experiences, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And sharing each of your stories, is brave and powerful and hard. And I think mental health itself, it's something that as a psychologist, I'm talking about all day, every day, but I didn't used to. Pre-grad school, pre-psychology life, is more similar to most people who don't talk about mental health, didn't get certain, language and resources, etc., for how to talk about what is such a huge part of our lives. And I feel like what each of you just spoke to, you hit on so many different aspects of mental health. So self-love, caring for yourself, holding stigmatized identities that other people judge or have prejudices about, substance use, connection, disconnection, physical health, and how that's tied to mental health. So just to kind of say that all of this wrapped up, I feel like paints such a nice picture of what mental health even is and how to kind of support your own mental health. And we know that self-care, self-love they might sound easy, but in practice, as both of you are saying, they're so difficult to really practice, to find the motivation to practice. So many feelings come up around them, whether or not it's guilt or shame. I shouldn't be putting time and energy into myself. But it sounds like both of you, have really developed a certain comfort level and an awareness of the importance of that. I do also want to note, so at the Mental Health Coalition, we have these resources. They're called roadmaps to mental health, and we touch on various topics within mental health. And we do have one on self-love, and we have one on self-care. So for you two, for everybody watching, afterwards, you can check out our website and look for those roadmaps for more kind of information, tips, and ideas around this.
Yes. When you're talking about self-love, I'm seeing a lot of folks in the comments be like, man, but that's hard, and it's hard to love myself sometimes. And that's so relatable. And I think for me on my journey, my self-love grows when I make a decision out of bravery. That's been my biggest moment of self-love, cultivating self-power. When I say, gosh, it's really hard to get out of bed right now, or gosh, I just want to send a really mean text message to this person, or I really want to just like numb out and have like 3 drinks and forget about the day. And then I choose not to, and I choose to take a step back, and I choose to pause, or I choose to get out of bed 1, 2, 3, or I choose to put my phone down and take 3 breaths. This cultivates self-love because it shows self-control. It shows self-power. It shows awareness. It shows, no, I'm choosing to be my higher self in this moment instead of indulging my lower vibrational self. And the more we make these micro choices, the more we evolve. And we not only evolve ourselves, but we're like actively evolving our own human DNA when we make these choices from love instead of fear.
Sure.
And it's also that feeling of like, this person, you can text me rude messages, you can say rude things on my social media, you can be abusive, you can be a rude parent, whatever, you know, we have so many daggers in our lives. You know, I'm sure you all watching can relate to this. You all can send me whatever you want, but I love myself. I choose myself. I show up for myself, and I give myself the love and care I need so that I can give the love and care that you need. Because if you are sending these rude text messages, it's because you are feeling pain.
100%.
And I want to be strong for you as well as for myself. And so this has been my journey of self-love that I find to be very effective.
I mean, I just want to even pick up on what you said there is like, it's so common to hear people say, I mean, even in my personal experience of friends or people that I know around me of going, you know, they just look down. They just look like they need a big hug. And you say to them like, is everything okay? And they'll be like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm like, you don't seem yourself. And I don't want to put it on you. I don't want to burden you. And I'm like, you know, I shouldn't put that on you. I'm like, I'm your friend. That's exactly why I'm here, for the good and the bad. And I think one thing that, you know, two things I want to say. One thing is, we've all gone through this. You know, everybody in all walks of life have gone through times, some very extreme, some maybe just lightly touching on it, where we've had a difficult time with our mental health. And I think it's not, you know, it holds no prisoners. It affects us all. I think the second thing I want to mention is sometimes it takes baby steps. Sometimes, like you just said, Kieran, you know, sometimes it might just be like, you just don't want to get out of bed, and getting out of bed is a win.
Yes.
And even though it's a small win, it's a win.
Yes.
You know, making your bed and knowing that. I heard, you know, I'm probably sure that you two have heard it as well about a gentleman from the army or from the military who was given a talk, and he'd said about, you know, if you get up in the morning and you make your bed, that's your first task of the day. And even if you have the most shittiest of days and you know, you feel like you could just explode, you come home to a bed made. And I just think there's something beautiful in that, because it's just, you've achieved that thing that day. And I think if you take baby steps like that, you know, then you can go, okay, well, I'm out of bed, and do you know what? I'm going to go for a jog today, or I'm going to take 3 minutes to just sit and concentrate on my breathing and totally blank my mind, and then continue on with my day. Things like that, you know, it's not just a one size fits all. It's not just if you exercise you'll feel great, or if you know, I think it's sometimes people have to go on a journey to discover what's best for them. You know, and I think, you know, another point that I just want to sort of pause on as well is that sometimes you will feel great, and there's going to be moments where you've built up, you know, great routines and things like that, and sometimes you'll have relapses, and you'll come to a point where you go, it's all been for nothing, because now I feel as shitty as I did before. You've had that little trip, and that's fine, because you pick yourself up and you get back on that, you know, you get back on that journey. And I think that's so important. I love that you just brought that up. I love that too. I want to jump in there, because when you talk about falling off and then beating the self up, it's very detrimental. And you're absolutely right. What we have to say is, like, if I had a little baby with me and they were learning how to ride a bike and they fall off the bike, I would say, nope. They start crying. Oh, I fell off the bike. No problem. Dust your feet off. Come back on the bike. Very normal to fall off the bike. You rode the bike once, you'll ride it again. No problem. Easy. You know, like, this gentle, calm tenderness with the self is so important. No problem. You were doing so well. You fell. You'll continue doing well. You're capable of it. You know, that love is so powerful, like a real unconditional parent for the self. And I think the more I move through my life, the more I find when I exhibit that tenderness with myself, I have all the tenderness for everybody else as well.
Also, just to piggyback off of that, it's so important, this idea that change and growth, they're not linear. They don't go like this. They go back and forward and back and forward. And over time, if you can kind of step back and look, the hope is you see change over time. But as both of you are saying, it's so common and so tempting to, when you take one step back, to think all is lost.
Yeah.
to engage in catastrophic thinking, is what we call it in the psychology world.
Mm.
And then when you get into that space of catastrophic thinking, it's really hard to even contemplate, okay, what can I do that's productive right now? Or what can I do to take care of myself right now? All you can think about is, I'm terrible at this. I'll never get better. This is where I'll always be. I'm sure, you know, every human on this planet has had those types of thoughts. They're human thoughts.
And we have to make our own thoughts work for us. We have to observe the thought and say, how did this make me feel? When I thought this, it made me feel bad. When I think a different thought, it makes me feel good. And paying attention to that creates that mindfulness. We do this meditation to create stillness of the fluctuating mind, to then observe what works and what doesn't work. So I'm really glad that you're talking about those thoughts, Dr. Naomi. It's absolutely right. And so shouts out to some friends on the call. Thank you, Sa, for the love, and, you know, Little Queer Leaf and all the family who joined. There was one thing I wanted to address too that I just saw. Anyways, it looks like one of you guys wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
There's so much love. I was reading. I'm listening and reading all the time, and there's so much love. You know, I don't know if this is the right term, Dr. Naomi. You may want to correct me, but for me, it's that the negativity spiral. It's one of those things where you can wake up and it's a shitty day outside, and you're like, oh, it's raining. I can't do what I want to do, and then it's very easy to follow that pattern downwards of everything. You know, somebody sends you a bad text and you maybe get more wound up than you would normally because you're already upset that the weather's bad, and then something else doesn't go well for you and you stub your toe and all of a sudden it's the end of the world. And I think the thing that I would from my experiences is that through going through counseling and through talking to a therapist and learning not only about myself and what I've been through and challenging that and thinking in a different way, but it's also having that awareness of things like that negativity spiral where you by being more aware of it and by educating yourself more about it, you come to a point where you go, hang on a minute, like things aren't so bad. You know, yes, it's raining outside, and yes, that person texts me and it's a bit crappy and, you know, I don't like what they've said. But I think the more awareness you have of that spiral, then you go, I'm going down the spiral here, and you can sort of pause and maybe cut that off before it gets worse. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that mental health, you know, for me, my interpretation of it, I guess, is that your brain and your emotions and everything is a muscle just like anything else. And the more that you train that muscle and the more that you give it, you know, the love and attention, 100% practice makes perfect. And, you know, I just feel that we could talk for hours about this because we're obviously also passionate about it. And there's so many different people, different experiences that I'm reading. And I just think this is incredibly important, and I'm so privileged to be speaking with you ladies about it, honestly.
No, thank you. And I think folks are responding about depression and anxiety, and I know, Dr. Naomi, you should take it away on that. I think for me personally, I experience anxiety very much so. And for me, it exists as this kind of like underlying feeling of butterflies in my stomach. And I've really been doing a lot of work to look at it and say, okay, what is it? What is the fear? What is the concern? And it was really helpful for me to uncover, you know, in my childhood, how everything that I would do would either be very affirmed or very discouraged. It was just like two extremes. Like, this is good, this is bad. This is well done, this is not well done. This is an A+, this is a C. And when you live like that, you're you're in constant fear of judgment. And that was so hugely illuminating for me because I would go to the boxing gym and I love to box, but I'm finding myself over analyzing. Was that a good punch? Was that good enough? Is this an A+? Is that? And then same for getting on a stage, same for being in the studio. And when you live like that, you're living for something outside of you. You're living for a judgment. You're living to be either affirmed or torn down by somebody else, which is not good for your mental health. You're also not doing something out of the love for the thing. You're actually doing something out of an addiction to an external positive validation or a negative. And so really shifting that in my mind has soothed so much of my own anxiety. Now, does that mean that if you who are watching this, you suffer from anxiety, that's going to resonate with you? Not necessarily. It's each of us have to do the work and say, where does this fear of future pain, this fear of future discomfort, which is anxiety, why does it show up for me? where in my path and in my journey did I feel so much pain that now I'm so guarded against all of these different things, either rationally or irrationally. Anxiety serves its purpose, right? If we're out in the woods and we feel like we're going to be chased by a tiger, we need to feel like those feelings of anxiety. But a lot of it doesn't serve us because it's old, and we can put ourselves in situations to feel safe rather than on edge all the time. So I offer
100%.
that just from a personal example. You know, for those of you who are watching, take that time to go in and say, where do these fears come from, and do they serve me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really at the heart of fear and anxiety is this idea of self-protection, and when is it on overdrive, because it often does get on overdrive. That mechanism in our brain, it's not the dial doesn't tune so finely, right? It's a big dial. It's like off and it's on a lot of the times. But through awareness, through skill building, through things like therapy and self-reflection, you can learn how to make that dial just a little bit more finely tuned. So, you know, in this situation, I do need fight or flight. This situation, I actually can put my self-protectiveness on pause, and I can get my guard down, and then everything in between. And then to speak to that negativity spiral too, because that's related here, a negativity spiral can lead to that dial being turned way up. So there's three things we can think about within that. So awareness, curiosity, and action is the way that I like to frame it. So as you all were saying, just being aware, okay, my brain is getting into that spiraling state. There's the awareness, you know it's happening. You can't change anything if you don't know that it's happening. And then curiosity, so actually observing. So what's going on for me? What is the thought that triggered this spiral? Is this serving me, to use your language, Kieran? I think that's great. And then action. So what can I do differently in this moment? What am I doing right now? What can I do different so that I'm not kind of stuck in this space? And we have a lot of questions about depression, anxiety. These are big topics, but this idea of awareness, curiosity, and action can really apply to either of those. And something I do want to throw out there though is thinking about, so for anxiety, what that means if you're feeling anxiety is you are really keyed up. Your energy, your anxiety, that vibration is really high. And so you can think about what can I do right now to calm, to soothe, to bring my energy down. Depression, on the other hand, that's like the other end of the same spectrum.
The past and the future.
Yep, and they often go hand in hand. So depression is more of, it's like a low state. You're sluggish, your mood is down, opposite of anxiety where you're really keyed up. So with depression, you want to think more about what can I do to elevate, to bring my energy up. So kind of think of it like a seesaw, but notice first, am I on the depression side of it, or am I on the anxious side of it? And how can I level that seesaw off a bit more?
I mean, I think it's incredible. It's so interesting. I literally could sit and listen to this all night because it inspires me and it interests me equally. I mean, I think that one thing that I was going to say there was, even if there's something that you are not affected by, because I know so many people who will go through life and, they, have their hobbies or they have their interests and they have their day-to-day lives and they have a family and they get through their lives without even having to consider mental health, I suppose, in a context of, they get by and they've never had to, they've not felt anxiety at a level where they have to really do something about it. But I think, that's great. And, amazing that people can get through life like that. But I don't think there should be anything embarrassing in thinking I'm really struggling right now. And I don't know what it is, I should be fine. I've got my family, I've got my job, I've got my thing. And I think sometimes, like you said, the awareness for me is one of the most important things, especially when I was going through everything that I was going through, is like realizing that actually I'm punishing myself for something that is not my problem. It's something that's happened to me because of something that I couldn't control. And, when I was younger and was working through my relationships with family and friends and my own insecurities about my sexuality and things came to light and come out of the woodwork where I was like, I didn't even realize that I was punishing myself about that. and some things can be from childhood where you might not have even thought that it would be affecting you. And I think the awareness when you was talking there, Dr. Naomi, is so important and can be the first stepping stone to, that curiosity and action. And I want to say from my personal perspective, somebody very close to me said to me the other day that they're really struggling, and it's something that a person I would have never have thought would be struggling. And I just think that there is so much bravery and courage in going, I really need help right now. I really need to, I need to speak to somebody. I need access to resources. I think it's such a huge step, and it can be a very daunting one for people. I know that people worry what people may think. I know you touched there on stigmatism at the top there, Dr. Naomi, but I think people can get so worried that they're going to look weak. They're going to look like they haven't got a grip on everything. And I just think, I implore people to, to just ask for help, or to seek help, or to go online and do a little bit of research, to go on, to use those roadmaps that you spoke about there, Dr. Naomi. I think there's so much bravery and so much courage in that. And even if you're not one of those people that suffer, just the empathy of others that will go through that. Like you said, they're caring about, if somebody sent you a really shitty text, they might be going through the worst day ever. And what they're feeling has, and not, I'm not saying that that's right for that, but they've said something out of anger because they're not dealing with things right. And it's almost like if you are in a place where you can be compassionate, sometimes that might be the one thing that they need to go, to take a look and go, I should have never have sent that text to that person, So there's so many, and like you said, Dr. Naomi, there are such huge topics, and there is such huge amounts of coping mechanisms and suggestions of what to do, how to deal with these things, that, this is why we need all these resources. This is why we need all this information and education, is because it's not a one size fits all. Yeah, I mean, I'm just so interested in listening to you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I also was so interested in what you were saying about, folks that don't struggle with mental health. And, one of the things we say at the Mental Health Coalition is everybody has mental health. Mental health is health also. And we think about, too, the difference between clinical mental health, so mental health where you're really not functioning and really, need some external supports. And, maybe you have a clinical diagnosis, but things are really, really tough and you're really struggling. And then there's daily mental health. And daily mental health is something that everybody has. Three of us have it sitting here right now. Even if the state of your mental health today is pretty good, feeling calm, feeling excited, that's your daily mental health. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, that's also your daily mental health. So I just like this idea of kind of expanding our idea of mental health, of folks who have it and folks who don't. Even within clinical mental health, we know from research that 80% of people will have a clinical mental health condition at some point in their lives. It's just a matter of whether or not, honestly, they're aware of it. Going back to awareness, going back to language, a lot of folks struggle with their mental health. They just, they're not aware and they don't know how to talk about it. They wouldn't label it that way. And I wonder, both of you have such amazing language around this topic, around mental health. I have my own question, which is how did each of you grow into this space of, having this language, being aware, because language around mental health can be really difficult.
100%. Kieran, you feel free to lead on that one.
It's a great question. I think it's a desire to want to be in service. And so when I feel like I can't be in service, whether that means for my own family, my friends, my career, I noticed that. And I was like, I have nothing to give. I'm so depleted. I'm so moody. I don't feel good. And I don't want to feel this way because I know what it's felt like when I energize somebody else, when I hug somebody else, when I'm there for somebody else. It makes me feel good and it makes them feel good. And so I think that was a huge entry point into me wanting to, work with a therapist. Now I've been doing therapy for the last 4 years. I do it every Tuesday. I had my session this morning, earlier today. that's helped me grow so much, and finding the right person is very important, but that's been huge. Reading a lot online, resources like the Mental Health Coalition, as you said, language in different global languages, as well as, ASL and sign language. We had a conversation about making this conversation as accessible as possible. That's huge. And being analytical and not judgmental. We can't be out here being like, oh, I'm fine. I have a roof over my head. There's people starving in the world. I have nothing to complain about. That's privilege, this and that. I find that conversation to be very dysfunctional, because if you don't feel like your best self, that's all right. That's the end of the conversation. That's enough for you to want to dig deeper, for you to want to prioritize your own healing, for you to want to say, I don't feel good, and life is supposed to feel gorgeous and delicious, and wow, look at this tree, and oh my God, the sky looks so stunning tonight, and oh my God, is that a star? Like, wow, like this is so cool. The God energy and spirit energy wants to move through us. It's a delicious opportunity. So I think that was the biggest one, not judging and just saying, okay, I don't feel good. So why don't I feel good? What's the truth? What's the information? That curiosity that we've been talking about, asking. And then noticing what resonates. Oh yeah, this person talked about this. I feel that way. Oh, okay. So what did you do? Oh, cool. I'm going to try that, this bravery.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Kieran. I think me going through my life and the challenges that I have had, like I said, I suppressed a lot of emotion. It fired up somewhere else. It became something else. And, very honestly, I came to a point where I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I genuinely came to a place where I was, and I've talked a lot about it in my music, which, has definitely helped and been a coping mechanism. But for me, it was allowing myself to be vulnerable enough to put a hand up and say, I need to speak to somebody, I need help. And going in and taking that first step was extremely difficult for me, because I felt like I was throwing away my my confidence. I was being vulnerable. I was gonna open myself to all sorts of, and it's getting in there and doing it for me was so therapeutic, and it was tough. I mean, it's not easy. You're sat there and you're having to delve into, I almost talk about it same way as songwriting, where you're almost digging into those old wounds that you felt you've dealt with, and you're bringing all that pain back.
Yes.
And so it can be really, really horrendous going to sessions. But I found that, in my experience, it really helped me. And I think, that education about myself and awareness about mental health and how to deal with it better just helped me find myself a little bit more. And to what you were saying there, Kieran, for me to then try and not educate in a belittling way, but to try and help other people using the same terminology and the same coping mechanisms, and those kind of things, and seeing them benefit from that as well, just made me think, everybody, wouldn't it be so good if everybody had a therapist, or everybody had a counselor, or everybody had somebody that they could confide in and help find themselves. And to your point as well, Dr. Naomi, which I think is incredibly important to mention, is that, sometimes it can be beyond the daily mental health of, yoga and meditation. Sometimes there has to be some further involvement with medicines and stuff. And that's been very close to my personal relationships I've had before as well. But I think for me, this education of knowing myself better and being able to use that when I talk to my friends, and like you said, all the information that you find online, Mental Health Coalition, documents, resources, is only going to help to further better our own understanding of ourselves. And one word I find really appropriate is contentment. For me, that finding that
balance.
Contentment within myself has been one of the biggest changes in my in my poor mental health management before.
Yes.
Well, we have a question here from our viewers about, I'm going to try to pin it, but about, yes, here it is. healing factors. And this might be a nice note to end on.
Mm.
You know, thinking about mental health and what's healing. I know each of you have touched on a few things, but it'd be nice to know if you could name, like, what's your number one healing factor when it comes to mental health?
Go ahead, Kieran.
I have been giving myself the space to release and cry privately. And I find that to be very healing because I think I didn't know that my anxiety was tied to personal sadness, whether it's old wounds, whether it's someone bullying me, whether it's somebody else making me feel small. And when I carry those wounds, that's when I'm toxic to somebody else, I'm rude to somebody else, I'm mean to somebody else because I'm feeling that pain in my body. And I found that when I take time to be by myself, whether I'm lying in bed or I'm just lying on the floor, I will ask myself, was it this? Does this feel upsetting? Does it this? And then I'll arrive at it and I'll feel the tears come and I'll release it privately and I'll say like, yeah, there you go. That was the thing. That was why you're feeling upset. You know, it's okay. Release that. And that feels good because I'm showing up for myself. I'm owning what's challenging for me. I'm owning it, which is even more self-love. You know, this whole thing of spirituality when someone's like, "Oh, you'll be fine," or "You got this." That's not cathartic. What's cathartic is like, "Oh gosh, I fully feel your pain because I felt that pain. I've been there. I've cried on the floor. I've felt those things and I offer it to you in solidarity, not like I'm above you, you know?" So we have to go through that to be healing for others. And I also find the private work really healing because then I'm not depending and hoping someone will come and bail me out of my own misery, right? Where you kind of like have this thing of like, well, when I find my true love, they're going to help me, or my best friend's going to help me, or I can't wait to meet that therapist who's going to save me. We can do it now. You can get off the call and have a 10-minute conversation with yourself now. Say, oh God, what's upsetting me? You know, you can own your own healing journey. And when I do that, I don't come expecting anything from anybody else. I come ready to give, ready to support, ready to hold space in the same way I held for myself with no judgment and so much love and tenderness and like, oh yes, you just let it out. No problem. Nothing wrong here. Then I find myself doing that for others and they feel safe to cry with me. They feel safe to be held by me. And this has been the most healing, being vulnerable and aware and truthful with myself so that I can hold that space for other people.
I hear everything you're saying and agree totally. I think developing and educating myself and, you know, even when it seems hard, sticking to it and growing and all those kind of things has been such a huge thing for me, because then what it's also enabled me to do, and like you eloquently put, it's helped me to be a support for others. You know, and I must say, you know, for what I do and my music, for me to be honest about how I feel and being sincere and genuine and putting what I've felt into music, seeing that resonate with other people has been just the most, I just feel a huge honor, just being able to be one of those tools that people have used to you know, to unlock the emotion, like you were saying about being able to sit there and unlock that moment to just bawl their eyes out and feel the benefit of it. You know, and I've done that with music all my life. You know, there's a very specific song by Coldplay called "Oh," and it's a hidden track on one of their albums, and it's a song I was listening to as my you know, when my grandma was passing away, and it's my grandma and my memory of her and being able to use that song to soothe myself has you know, I've imbued my emotions into that song, and it's become such a beautiful song that when I hear it, I'm filled with such happy memories. And I feel so honored that I've been a part of that with other people, and that really fuels the future music I've made. You know, all the things that are coming up are songs that I've just been honest with and looked at how my music has impacted on other people, and wanting to continue using that as a tool for others. So my contentment comes in the form of other people's contentment as well. So it's kind of like it's a beautiful cycle. And And again, listening to you guys talk about mental health and stuff like that only wants me to, it makes me just want to continue the conversation and use this platform and, having these Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives to continue that discussion, because the people that we haven't managed to catch today, hopefully we'll catch with the Instagram TV that we have done, or,
Yes.
a conversation later in the month or later in the year. I think we've got to keep having these conversations for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. Hopefully it's just the start, just the beginning.
100%.
I love what both of you said. So cry, let it out, don't suppress it.
Yeah.
Use music. Music is a
Release.
tool.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Release. Absolutely. And then this beautiful element of kind of self-healing with other healing, and that being in connection with other people. You two clearly, are so generous with everything that you're doing, and how important it is to both of you to be helping other people. It's so lovely to see. So thank you both so much. This has been such a lovely conversation. I feel very lucky to have had it here with you. And thank you so much to everybody watching. I love seeing your comments. I see some of the healing factors you all were talking about. It's lovely to see.
And I check all my DMs, so it's Madam Gandhi. If there's anything else we can continue, answering and keeping the conversation going. So much love from my side, and thank you all for the positive feedback. It's wonderful to see you all be so proactive with this. We're all healing together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So thank you, Madam Gandhi. Thank you, Calum Scott.
Very welcome.
Thank you all for watching. Make sure you can check out the rest of our one-to-one series on the Mental Health Coalition page. Also, the link in our bio. There's tons of resources there on mental health as well. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody. Thank you.
Take care,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.